Welcome to Inside the Castle, the podcast that goes behind castle doors to have real conversations with real people about solving the nation's toughest challenges.
I'm Angie Frymuth, and I'm one of your hosts today.
And I'm Emily Cherboya.
In this episode, we're talking about the Arlington National Cemetery Expansion Project, which is a project under the Corps' Interagency and International Services Program. So, Emily, are you familiar with the IAS program?
Well, I have heard of the program, and I know that it is a tool to help accomplish work between two federal agencies, but that's about all that I know. But I am sure that our guests today are going to tell us more about the program.
Yeah, like you, I know of the program, and I know that it's been a great tool, and it's a great way for two non-DoD agencies, whether it be federal, state, or local, to work together to share expertise, technical expertise, and all of that. So I am looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that, and specifically the Arlington National Cemetery project. So joining us today is Major Jared Demello and Mr. Frank Cook and Mr. Matt Karlinchak. Thank you all for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So before we go too much farther, we always like to get to know our guest. So starting with you, Major Demello, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role within USACE?
Yeah, so I'm Major Jared Demello. I'm the Deputy Area Engineer here for the Northern Virginia Area Office, which is part of Norfolk District. And as a Deputy Area Engineer here, I'm really responsible for the resource and administrator of supporting our resident office and the area engineer, making sure they have all the resources they need to deliver our program.
My name is Frank Cook. I am the, I'm the resident engineer here at the Arlington National Cemetery Resident Office. So I manage the construction projects and the staff that we have here, the CORs, project engineers, and QAs that run the projects and work with our contractors.
And I'm Matt Karlinchak. I'm the Norfolk District's program manager for Arlington National Cemetery. Essentially, I am the liaison with project and program management for Norfolk Districts with the Arlington National Cemetery team.
All right. Well, first, can you help us out and tell us more about the Core IIS program?
In our context here, USACE essentially has our direct partner with Arlington National Cemetery. Now, a lot of the work that occurs on Arlington National Cemetery as an active national cemetery is outside of what we do. So USACE is constantly operating in the background, helping deliver some of the larger projects, but we have other stakeholders here on the ground, as well as, the local MIC, as well as other contracts that are delivered directly from Arlington National Cemetery for routine operations, as what they're doing is, 25 to 30 internments every day, Monday to Friday, and another 6 to 12 on Saturdays. So there's a lot of active work that is happening here. Part of this being an IIS program really is about providing, that interagency construction-specific support for some of the larger projects here on the ground. I know we're going to be talking a little bit about our Southern Expansion Project, which is going to be expanding the grounds by 52 acres and about 88,000 internments. But really, there's other construction here, as well as the illustrious history we have as USACE delivering projects to Arlington National Cemetery as one of their primary partners.
It sounds like a really interesting partnership that you have, and specifically the project at Arlington National Cemetery sounds interesting. So is there anything more that you want to talk specifically about the project, just to set the background for our audience?
Yeah, so before we start talking about Southern Expansion, I think it's kind of important to talk about the history of USACE and our involvement with Arlington National Cemetery as a partner, as a historic site. And while all cemeteries and all project areas have unique things, Arlington has millions of visitors a year that are coming through. And they're seeing things like the JFK Memorial for President Kennedy, visiting President Taft's memorial and burial site, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And when people go to those sites, they're really kind of connecting with that history, but there's a lot of USACE history there as well. So the JFK Memorial in particular back in, established in 1963, shortly after Kennedy's assassination. And the day before he was supposed to be interred here at Arlington, Jackie Kennedy, while the president laid in state at the Capitol, requested that a eternal flame was present at his grave. So 30 hours prior to his burial, the chief of engineers was tasked to have a team come out and put the eternal flame in place. Obviously, it was a successful mission at the time, and Jackie Kennedy lit the original eternal flame, and a year later, a more permanent option developed with Norfolk District providing the design and the construction, was able to get that into place. And then again in 2013, we did another update to the eternal flame. And those are the things that I think are, one, they're very prestigious projects because of so many visitors, but really just the historical significance in recognizing a former president, and especially President Kennedy. So we also have other historical work here where we've done both providing updates and things that people don't think about while you're at a cemetery and you're dealing with issues such as drainage, which at a regular project site could be difficult, but at a cemetery where you have so many underground structures and it's really hollowed ground, that those little details in other areas that could be nuisance issues here, they are significant problems. So that's just a little bit about our history here. We do those, have those historical backgrounds as delivering, these support to major memorials, but we also have these kind of other smaller, lesser known areas that we're already always contributing to. Most recently, Orton Wetzel Gates here, one of the historic gates at Arlington Cemetery, provided we were the construction resource and management office for doing that major upgrade, which has been well covered in other media outlets as well as USACE on delivering. But it's really just maintaining that history here and making sure that when people come to the grounds, it's really something they're both proud to see, as well as recognizing all of the service members that are interred here. I think that's really, while we do have this history, we do have, I think, our biggest days are ahead of us, especially as we talk about southern expansion and, the necessity for that. We don't deal with the operations side of the house at Arlington, which is a massive undertaking, and Arlington is the cemetery is an amazing partner for us. And while they are one of those very unique partners in that they're delivering such an amazingly high visibility project with a lot of involvement from our executive branch, from the legislature, and so many people connect here with over 400,000 individuals interred on the grounds and major historical sites with millions of visitors, people lose sight sometimes about the day-to-day work that they're doing and the significant demands that are placed on them to execute their mission. So we do have a small role in a very kind of big undertaking that's led by Arlington National Cemetery.
It sounds like everywhere you do turn in that specific area, USACE has a presence, or there's something that USACE has touched. So that is great. I always interested in hearing all of the work that USACE has actually done within that area of the nation. So as with any project that we work on, there seems to be challenges that pop up, and I'm sure that there has been challenges doing work specifically at a cemetery, nonetheless a national level cemetery. So can you talk a little bit about the challenges?
Yeah, sure, I can talk about that. As Major Demello talked about, it's a very active cemetery. A lot of people don't realize how many services are going on a daily basis. So the cemetery holds between 25 and 30 funeral services a day, and that's something that our contractors are always having to take into account. So we send out a funeral schedule for them the day before, and anything that comes in their vicinity, they need to shut down their equipment, make sure that they're not making any noise. If they're in the view shed of the service, they need to relocate themselves. So that's something that luckily our contractors fully respect, that fully appreciate the importance of this place and the services that are taking place. So they're very good about respecting that importance. The other thing is, of course, the number of visitors that come through the cemetery just on a daily basis, not to mention some of the holidays, is something that we're always dealing with on our sites. From folks crossing through the site to try and reach the site of their loved one, just to folks who are lost, looking for a section that's somewhere that they're not able to find. So again, our contractors have been great partners working with us to help manage the public who are wandering around the cemetery, trying to see the sites and, find a specific location. So those are some of the things that we work with here at the cemetery.
Well, I can imagine that it sounds like it's complicated to work on projects there, especially in a cemetery that has as much history as it does. Are there specific construction guidelines, regulations that you need to follow in working on the projects there?
So we certainly have a unique set of specifications. The aspects of shutting down for services is something that's written into all of our contracts. In addition to that, we deal with a lot of historic features referencing the Orden-Wetzel Gate. We've also done work for the Memorial Amphitheater, so we have a lot of specific historic issues that we have to take into account and historic regulations to make sure that we're not changing the view shed of the cemetery. There's folks here, cultural resources, that work for the cemetery to make sure that the cemetery stays the same year over year, decade over decade, and so that 100 years from now, folks will be coming out and looking at the same view that they're looking at today, down to the tree. In fact, some of the folks have pictures at different locations from 20, 30, 50 years ago that they'll come out and compare to what they're looking at now. So a lot of cemetery specific things, and just being very respectful of the historic nature of the cemetery.
So this work sounds very interesting, and for somebody that's into engineering construction, I think that they would like to know more about what it's like to be an area engineer or doing the work that you guys do. So tell us a little bit about what you find interesting in the work that you do, and then what type of people you're looking for when looking to do this type of work.
Sure. Yeah. I've personally really enjoyed the variety of work. We're working through a roads reconstruction program right now for the cemetery, so we've got that. But then again, the projects that are historically significant, reworking some of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in the past, the Orden-Wetzel columns or Orden-Wetzel Gate more recently, and then now the Southern Expansion Project. Just really a large variety of work, not to mention some of the other projects that we have in our area down at Quantico. So I really enjoyed the variety, and to speak to that, we're looking for people in our office who are able to tackle that diverse range of projects with a sort of diverse range of expertise. So we've got folks who can really do it all here. The other thing is that we do get a lot of small business contractors. So we look for our team to be out there sort of leading the way for the contractors who are maybe new to not only the cemetery but to USAID's processes, just to make sure that we can get the best project delivered to the cemetery. And Matt, I don't know if you want to speak to any of that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the most appealing things working here is working here. You come to work and you are at Arlington National Cemetery. Our nation's heroes are buried here. There's a sense of awe every time I come to work. We're literally making history in some of our projects. We just put up a Orden-Wetzel Gate a couple months ago. It's going to be up there for several hundred more years. It's kind of really something special compared to working at a military base. Yeah.
I think one of the strengths of the Corps of Engineers is just the amount of work that we can do in a diverse environment. Our portfolio is so broad that I think we have opportunities to work on just about anything that we would want to work on. And you all certainly have a great project with the National Cemetery. And I'm really appreciate the time that you spent talking to us about this project. Before we end our conversation, is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I think we really we've talked about the past year and what we're presently doing, and one of the things that we're really just presently doing is the award for the next phase of Southern expansion and talking about the future and the expansion there. I'll leave that to Matt to kind of hit on the future that's in, developing before our eyes here. So Matt, sure.
Yep. So we are currently, we just awarded the second phase of a 3-phase program. If you're in the DC area, you can see the active work around the Air Force Memorial. Federal Highways is actually in charge of that construction project. They're rerouting a bunch of the roads to accommodate our work, the USACE work. So phase 2 is going to start off next couple weeks. It's essentially going to move the service complex, which would in the future perimeter would be kind of in the middle of the cemetery, out to the exterior, which will open up a lot of extra interments. So that is going to kick off here pretty soon, a couple years worth of construction. And then our third phase is going to start probably about 2026. That'll be the actual cemeteries. We'll start to see the 88,000 interments that Major Demello mentioned earlier. So we will reset the perimeter of Arlington National Cemetery another 50 acres, and essentially extend the life of Arlington Cemetery. Overall program is nearly $400 million worth of work. So it's something pretty special.
Well, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate the time, and we look forward to hopefully doing another podcast with you in the future. So we appreciate your insights. Till next time, be safe, be innovative, and continue to do great things.
Thanks for joining us for this Inside the Castle podcast. To provide your feedback, email us at cw.infrastructure.team@usace.army.mil. Stay tuned for additional Inside the Castle podcasts as we explore life inside the Corps and revolutionize civil works together.